there and welcome back to Liz at Home and day 2 of Colour It My Way with Tonja. I finished the bird using the same colours and using my fine liners quite a lot, and now I have a glitter gel pen. It's a smooth glitter gel pen. I won a set of them ages ago in some colouring competition, and I'm going to be doing some of these little circles and things and the flowers using this, and just so that it will stand out. I do enjoy using my gel pens, I must say, and I try to bring them out every now and then. They give me the texture, the feel of using them gives me great enjoyment. So I'm just using them, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see better. So I've also sped this little bit up so that it doesn't take so long, because there's no real technique involved. I've gone over a lot of the dark lines using my gel pen just to make them stand out a bit and to give some texture, depth and interest to this little part of the picture. So all the lacy trim I've used this gel pen for, and I think it looks quite pretty. So now I'm going to be doing the rest of the ribbon, and I'm back to my pencils and using the same colors and just using the darker color to create the shadows and add depth. And I'm going to be using the exact same colors as I've used before. So because this is a long video, I'm going to speed this next bit up a bit so that you can see how I do it, but I don't want to keep you hanging around for ages watching things that you probably have seen already. As you can see, I just do want to point out, in case you're new to colouring and in case this is something that you've wondered about, that I use a heavier pressure and then I lighten it up as I go out, so that the lighter bit will blend better with the next color that I'm going to use, and I go on top of that next color with my next lightest color, and then blend that out in the same way and leave a space for highlights, which I then pull all together, usually with my white gel pen, sometimes with either a blending pencil or my blending solution, depending on what it's looking like. And also my mood at the moment. I must admit, I'm very, very dependent on how I feel. So it just whatever happens. I'm sorry that the lighting is a bit bad here. I was using natural light and the sun started going down and shining and making things look awkward. So I'm using a Prismacolor here to add a bit more depth of color, and just because they do blend better than others, I've sort of mixed them up with the Giotto Still Novas. I'm also not very, I tend to mix and match my art supplies. I'm not I very seldom do a picture using only one art supply or one brand of pencils. I wanted to point out that once I've gone over everything with the white pencil, sometimes it ends up looking less vibrant than I want, and then I do another layer all over again just to bring out the colors and to give the vibrancy that I'm looking for. I quite enjoy the feeling again of coloring on top of the Prismacolor white. I know it sometimes ends up giving a bit of a wax bloom, but these harder Lyra Groove pencils tend to sort of keep that away a little bit as well. I'm not quite sure. I think it would be the same if one used polychromos pencils, but I prefer to sort of mix up an expensive artist brand with a cheaper brand so that you get the best of both worlds, as it were, and keep the expensive pencils from getting used up too quickly. Prismacolors for us here in South Africa are quite expensive because of massive import duties, so I think they cost 3 to 4 times what they cost you in the UK, because if I bring them in from America, then I pay double because of the import and postage, and then if I buy them from a store in South Africa that imports them, they obviously add on as well, so it just ends up being quite an expensive pencil, so I tend to treasure mine a lot. I do find that adding this extra layer on top does bring everything out just a whole lot more, and I quite enjoy doing it. So I hope that you can see that it's kind of worth the effort. I'm quite pleased with how these little ribbons are turning out. And then yet again, I will blend it all together with my trusty white Prismacolor that is getting very, very tiny. I've got a spare in the tin and I need to go and get it out, but you can just see that it brings them together very nicely. So I'll do the other ribbon off camera and get that part of the picture finished, and then we'll be back with our next stage. And I hope that you're enjoying it so far. I hope that these videos are not too long. It's quite an involved picture, so it's got a lot of little elements that just take time. So here we have the completed both ribbons, and now I'm going to start on the flowers at the top of the page. So I'm using the same colors. I ummed and ahed in my choice of colors about this. I have 2 Prismacolors added as well, but I decided I was going to try and tie the whole page together like this. I'm not sure if I should have gone for blue flowers. I did look at a lot of completed pages on Instagram, but somehow or other when one's coloring, you just end up doing, well, not you, I end up doing whatever I'm led to do in the moment. I'm not very good at planning. I'm not good at planning my colors. I'm not good at doing planning, as we've all discovered. I am using a slightly more blue tinge to this and have brought in a Prismacolor dark blue to bring depth to this. So I'm going to zoom in and do some of this with music in the background, and then I'll complete the rest of the flowers offline, and I hope you enjoy. Well, now that's 2 of the flowers finished, and I'm going to do the rest offline. I just thought I'd mention here that I saw somebody ask someone on a different video what they do when they're trying to color along with somebody and then the video is sped up. Well, basically what I do if I'm following something like that is I just pause the video until I've caught up to where they are, and then I normally make a note of the colors if they've shared them. I'm not sharing the colors specifically in this book because it's not really a color along, it's just showing you how I'm doing it to give you some ideas, and I just randomly picked colors. I don't know that they're the best colors in the world, but I enjoyed what I'm doing and I thought to share it like that. We're now onto the leaves, and I'm going to zoom in so I can chat with you and tell you what my process is for coloring them. So basically what my process is when choosing colors is to have a light, medium and dark in the color that I've decided to use. And I wanted this green, the green for these leaves, to be kind of a sagey color. I'm not entirely sure that they ended up like that because I like this pale green color, but it's too pale. So I was using this as my highlight and doing it a little bit differently, so I didn't really leave much white space on this. I've done all of the light color first, and then I'm doing the darker shading around that, so that the light color, I go over it again so that it will then stand out. And again, quite a number of layers to get anything to show. I don't do a lot in these Klara Markova books. I'd really love to hear in the comments people that color in them a lot. Do you love this paper, or do you find it maybe doesn't grab the pencil as much as you would prefer? I found that the pencils, I wouldn't say they're slippery on it, but they don't, it's maybe not very toothy. Maybe that's what I'm finding with the paper. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm going to finish this first layer and then come back with the next layer. So now I'm going to be using this medium green, and again I'm thinking about where shadows may be cast. So you can see I first colored a little bit around where the other leaf is resting on top of this leaf, which would cast a bit of a shadow, and then just lightly going around. And here this leaf is curved a little bit up, so I want the middle bit to be lighter than the rest. And again, there's going to be a cast shadow from the flower, from the little bell of the flower. And then I do the edges as well, just to kind of help and encourage the eye to see it slightly more 3D, as it were. So that's using the medium color. And then I'll do that on these leaves and be back to show you the next process with the darker green. So now that was done, and I'm carrying on with the darker green, and as you can see, doing exactly the same process as I did with the medium green, allowing the highlight, the part of the leaf that would be closest to the sun, to still be the pale green, and going over it all with the darker green. And then I will blend all of that together again with my trusty white Prismacolor pencil. You saw how small it had become, and I've now graduated to a new pencil, which is nice and long and luscious and easy to hold. So that's the dark green finished, and now the white Prismacolor nicely sharpened to smoosh it and blend it all together. And then I'll possibly do another layer on top of this again to make it all stand out. Do any of you follow this exact same process? I'd really love to hear. I did think I would be more multimedia with this, but this type of book calls to me to use pencils. I find it's really what I enjoy most. So you can be more fiddly and you can get into places. So I'm going over the darker bits again with the dark green, just to help them stand out a little bit more. And hey presto, they're all done, and I'll finish the rest offline. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just clap our hands and have them all finished like this when we were colouring, just in the blink of an eye? So now I'm doing the little bits on top. Are they called calyxes? I'm not quite sure. If you're good at botany and know the names and the parts of the flowers, which I've forgotten for many, many years, please tell me what the little top bits are. I think they're calyxes, but I really do stand under correction. I'm using some Prismacolors for these, and I'm just going to zoom in and show you what I'm doing. So my Lyra Groove didn't have the colours I wanted. I didn't want these calyxes to be exactly the same as the leaves, so I've used some Prismacolors. Again, a light, medium and dark. Not really going for bright, as I said before, more towards the sage. And hey voila, there we have all of our leaves finished and the picture looking a bit more complete. So now I think we can either do the background or the fairy next. I think I'm going to do the fairy, and I'm going to try and see how I do with the skin with the Lyra Groove, but I'm really not so sure that that's going to work well, but I thought I'd give it a go and see what it lands up looking like. I'm a little bit scared that this is going to be too orangey, but the pencil itself, the core of the pencil, has a slight pinkiness to it. I'm using a very light touch, sort of using the sides, not really the point of the pencil, not quite sure how to describe what I'm doing, to get a blendy feeling, and it's going on quite nice and smoothly. Not sure if the skin tone's too yellowy orange though, so I might bring more pink tones into this and some browns to try and get a little bit of shape. I'm not quite sure. I may also use a bit of Zest-It. I'm not quite sure. I'll do more and a few more layers and see what it looks like. I'm going to put on some music while I continue to colour this little fairy, and you can see how I do. I'm not unhappy with the tone I've got with this, but not thrilled. It's still a little bit too yellowy for my liking. I tried to give her some pink cheeks, but the pencil's not really taking as well as I'd like. So now I'm going to try shading with some of the brown to give a bit of shape to the face. Tried zooming in really close, but it just becomes blurred. So now it's time to give this little fairy child some hair, and I've decided to give her fair hair because her skin is very pale. So I'm starting with, again, some darker shadow places, and I'm using a sort of a tanny brown for that, just going underneath the hairline. I think I need to zoom in for you so that you can actually see what I'm doing. So this is probably, in art terms, I'm not sure if it would be an umber or a light umber, or I'm not sure. I know I thought of the colour when I was doing it, and now I can't think it. You can see as I add it to the edge of the face as well, it gives the face a bit of a 3D quality. I'm doing a very light, I'm virtually tickling the page with my pencil to just give a bit of shape to that nose, and I sort of took the shape of the eyebrow and drew an imaginary line down from there just to give her face a little bit of contour and shape. Klara hasn't really done any pencil lines here, so there's on the arm there little bits of stippling that are great to guide us where to do some shading, but not so much on the face. So I'm just still continuing with my skin journey, and then I will eventually get to the hair. And I'm always amazed, actually, when I look at these things, and as you've probably realized, I'm doing a voiceover here. I'm not speaking as I color because I really can't do that. I just can't color when I'm speaking. I can't paint, I can't draw. I find my brain does not multitask anymore. I wonder if multitasking is very much dependent upon a good supply of estrogen. It would be a great thing to know. I wonder if there are any medical people out there that have done studies like that. So now I'm just trying to blend this brown in again with a more pink tone pencil, just to bring in a bit of darkness there, and now the cheeky cheek pink, and just to give her a bit of a blush. And I'm becoming happier with our little fairy lady. She's such a sweet lady, sitting on her branch chatting to her friendly bird. What kind of bird is it? There are a lot of people that know lots about birds. So now just finishing up with this, and I'll come back when the face is all finished and we're ready to start on the hair. And of course, as I was choosing the colors for the hair, I decided, oh, I'll rather do the branch first. I'm quite happy with how the skin turned out, but I'm using this kind of very pale brown to do a first coat on the branch, which I'm just going to lightly color, and I'm trying to get myself organized. And once again, I'm using almost the flat of the side of the pencil to cover it quite quickly and smoothly. I'm just speeding this up because it's simply filling in the places with the pencil. I'm going to cover the whole of this branch with this pale color and then do the shading on top of the pale. You'll see that I, again, don't have a specific standard way that I color. I know many people always do the light color first and then the dark color, or the dark color first and then the light. I seem to chop and change, and I think it's just very interesting to me how the way that we do art is a great reflection of our personality. So now I've put a cotton bud in some of the zested, and I will definitely link zested for you. It's not really, I don't think, that available in America, but I know it's easily available both in South Africa and in the UK, so I'm not sure about Australia. If you live in Australia and you happen to be watching this, let me know if you get zested. So now on top of the damp zested, I'm adding the darker color, which is actually great because it blends out quite nicely like that. And to add some darkness to this, and I'll go in with a darker color again once I've finished this color. And I'm just going to go back from the dark color to the pale color again and go over it again. Just needs a little bit of sharpening. Do any of you use battery sharpeners? I'd love to have a recommendation of a good battery sharpener or an electric one. I just find the electric ones a bit too expensive for my pocket these days. Excuse me, I was just having a sip of tea. And this is blending quite nicely because it's still slightly damp from the zested. So it's all coming together quite well. And then I think we can finally go on to our little lass's hair, our fairy lady. I realized I forgot to do that one little bit of, not quite sure what it is, and I think it's probably moss, but I've made it pink because everything else is pink. So it is what it is. It's my picture and I can do what I want to. So now I'm going to zoom in closer and slow this down. So I'm going to go over the whole head of hair with the pale yellow. Normally when I do hair, I do the dark bits first, but this is such a small piece of hair, it's quite a small part of the drawing, so I'm going to do it like this and then add the dark shadows later just to give some color to start with. So this will be our highlight color, and then I'll go over the darker bits. This video is becoming fairly long, so I'm using this kind of ochre color, goldy color, to do the first bit of the dark shadow bits. And then it was difficult for me to see the little parts of the wing. As I was coloring this, I couldn't quite tell if that was wing or hair. I've got a more golden yellow here, which I'm using again. And then going to use even more brown, pale brown. This is just the places where the lines are. I'm not sure if you can see that, or where there would be cast shadows, or where the hair sort of goes in. And now we're doing the whole, over the whole lot with the pale yellow again. And I think that hair looks okay. I don't think it's the primary focus of the picture, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. And now I think I'm going to leave the hair like that and probably do the dress. Glasses on, and I've been umming and ahhing about the color for the dress, and I think I've decided I want it to be a sort of pale pastel pink, So I've decided to go with the Prismacolors. I may add one or other of my Lyra Groove, but they don't really have great pastel colors, so I think I'm going to use the pale pink to start with. So doing nothing special, I'm just going to be coloring this dress and then shading it a little bit and probably using gel pens or fine liners for the dots. I'll decide when I get there. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because we all know how to do flat coloring, and I'll add some music for you. So we've finished the dots and the dress, and we're on to the next thing. What will it be? Let's see. Stepping back and looking at my image, I'm not happy with the branch, and I noticed I haven't done the little birdie's claw. I want to bring out some more of the wood lines in the branch, and now that the blending solution has dried, I can use my fine liners. But I think I may use a pencil for the little claw of the birdie, and also perhaps I need to try and create some sort of shadow to show that he's sitting, that he's casting a shadow onto the branch. So I'm going to do that. And I don't know that it makes a huge difference, but I think it does add a little bit to the picture and just to the realism of what it looks like. I'm always amazed by how just little bits of shadow and the dark kind of makes the thing stand out. Just, you can see how the branch above where that shadow is all of a sudden stands out, and it's because of the darkness that allows it to actually be seen. This pencil is kind of hard going, so I think that I'm going to move over to my fine liners now and use those rather for this little claw. What do you call a bird's foot? A claw? I don't know, my brain seems to be constantly on holiday. showing my age somewhat, methinks. So it's easy to colour with the fine liners on this. Always a little bit anxious because sometimes fine liners, when you use a fixative, sometimes so it all looks fine, you look on the back page and everything's fine, and then you spray a fixative, and sometimes that makes whatever the ink is in the fine liner actually bleed through to the page behind. I'm going to start on the background now, and to do that I'm going to be using acrylic paint, a sort of a craft acrylic paint called Americana. It's a matte finish, and this is called Pale Sage, and I'm just using a little palette, some not very expensive brushes. I'm also going to use some white because I want it to be quite pale, and I'm using, always have baby wipes available when I use paint, and just one vessel of water to rinse my brushes. I've got 2 brushes here, and I've decided to do this part of the video in this second section because I'm hoping to try and make the wings transparent. So this is just part of the background, and I'll start doing it and show you how I do this, and then I'll do the rest of it off camera because it's quite a long process. But I do enjoy using my acrylic paints. I enjoy using watercolors even more, but for this I actually wanted the acrylic paints. So I wet my brush first just to have the brushes, the bristles, sorry, active. I'm not really adding water to the paint because it's quite runny. I load the brush and basically just start painting. I always have a sheet of paper beneath because, especially here on the edge, I want to be able to go off, so it's going off towards the back page. I've also put a sheet of paper on the facing page to try and avoid getting drips and things. And basically I'm just painting. I find that when little bits go onto the wax of where you've coloured, it's quite easy to just whip them off with your finger, which is where the baby white comes in handy if you've done it quite a lot. The baby wipe, I said the baby white, and I meant wipe. So I'm not going to show all of this process. I'll show you what it looks like when I've finished. If you'd like me to do a video at all on using acrylic paint as a background or in your colouring book, let me know. Sandy of Colour Creatively has done quite a few of those. I've been using acrylic paint in my backgrounds for the last 3 or 4 years every now and then. I don't always use them. I never seem to stick to one thing. I like changing it up. It's what keeps it interesting for me. So I'll show you what this looks like when we got further along. So I've completed the first top corner, and I'm going to have to say goodbye and come along to the next video tomorrow to see how we finish the background and how we complete the piece. Thank you for watching, and please leave a comment, and I really hope that you're enjoying this video series. See you in the next video. Bye-bye now.